Today we'll try something new. We'll show a very brief video. Let's see if we manage. But I think it's useful for one of the stories to support it with the video.
Yeah, I mean, I had a glimpse. I think it's quite a cool one to show. So I'm excited to see it. What do you think? Wait one more minute and then get started.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have to do one more thing. Let me unfollow. Okay. All right, so I think we should start.
Great. Maybe change to presentation mode. There we go.
I think I did.
Yeah, welcome everybody for today's webinar. We have quite a special one coming up today with Halloween closing in next week. We thought it might be a good point in time to bring up some horror stories on pricing. We spent a lot of time in that field, so especially Ingo can share a lot of those and is very happy to talk about it. We have some interesting stories with us. We have some tangible takeaways, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar just as the last ones. As always, we start with a brief introduction on us and then jump into the topic. So today's speaker again is Ingo Reinhardt, co-founder of Buynomics and long time in the pricing field, over 12 years before consulting, and now as Buynomics MD in charge of running the business, and I think foremost being the inventor of the unique Buynomics method, virtual customers. Myself today, a bit of a change in the lineup. I'm Anton, Chief of Staff Buynomics. Spent the last years in consulting our clients with their challenges, enabling them for success, and now mainly focused on developing our product, leading the operations, and making sure driving advancements to the application. Brief introduction on us as Buynomics, and then we'll come to today's content. So as Buynomics in core, we empower our customers to take their revenue optimization, revenue management to the next level. In the cloud-based application, our customers can optimize their portfolio, their pricing in a very holistic point of view. What that means is, be it pricing, be it promotions, be it products or trade terms, all of those answers come from one single source of truth. And within minutes, you can answer with the applications questions like, what's the impact of a price change? How do I react to competitor moves? Or today, very relevant, how do I behave in such an inflationary environment? As a result, we see that our clients have much shorter cycles to come to decisions, and bottom line, just make much more profitable decisions. If you're interested, check out our website. We have a lot of material on it, a lot of webinars, also white papers, articles, or just get in touch directly. We're very happy to open the conversation with you. I would say let's get started then. Maybe up front, one comment, any questions that you might have, please feel free to share them in the chat. We'll save some time at the end to go through them, make sure you get them answered. And I think with that, very excited to dive in those horror stories. So Ingo, please get started.
Thank you very much, Anton, for taking this role. I think Paul, who's the usual co-host, is on vacation today. And I think it's good to have some options here. Very good. So yeah, thanks for this. I think today's webinar is a bit different from many that we do. I think we have this one, and then we have a Christmas special. All of the other webinars are more serious in their content, where we go through different methods and the role of artificial intelligence, machine learning for pricing. We go through pricing strategy and other topics. And I think twice a year it's good to have to step a bit outside the typical method and take a look at our field that I hope all of us like and love from a bit of a different angle. But I think as the quote that we're showing here, there's a grain of truth in every joke. I think there's something instructive in the horror stories that we show. I think they are extreme. That's the nature of it, to also be interesting as stories, but they have a grain of truth that's relevant, I think, for most in their day-to-day life as a pricing professional. And this is why we want to tell us that there might be one or two that some of you have already known, but I think there's certainly something we added that's new and fresh and hopefully interesting and instructive. All right, so let's dive right into it with the first story. I think this is one that many of you probably have seen somewhere, and it highlights the difficulties or dangers of a simple algorithmic pricing where that people don't look at it and leave it purely to to an algorithm, and particularly an algorithm that is very simple and doesn't take into account the things that might happen. So I think it's a story that has made news a couple of times. So it's a book, a very specific book, a biology book, The Making of a Fly. It's on genetics. And what's important about this book is that that's something that very few people buy. So it's really difficult to assess how people or customers value the book, how much they're willing to pay for it. And in this situation, there were two companies offering that book on Amazon, and the way they tried to solve this challenge was that they were looking at each other's pricing. And in particular, one of them always tried to be a little bit above the lowest price, and the other company tried to be a little bit cheaper than the most expensive price, and this resulted in a situation where they were both essentially looking at the other, and in a way that led to a price increase. And this consecutively, as it was left alone for a very long period of time, resulted in a situation where the more expensive of the two books was priced at 24 million. Quite a large price for a book, and I don't think a price anyone noticed. I think at some point journalists noticed the high price and they wrote about it. And I think this is a very instructive situation of what can go wrong if you leave pricing, the price decision, purely to an algorithm. If you see that it's obviously wrong from anyone's point of view, and typically these things are addressed by introducing something like a maximum price, maximum margin, these type of things. But it shows what can go wrong if you just look in an extreme way just at the competition. Going from competition to cost, here's one example of a pricing horror story that I've liked for a very long period of time. It comes from American Airlines, and it's already a little bit older. So in the 80s, airline was struggling a bit, and they needed cash in the short term. And they wanted, one of the challenges that they wanted to address was customer retention. And they thought, okay, it would be a very good idea to have an offer that helps us bind our most loyal customers to the company. And the thing they came up with was an unlimited lifetime first-class pass for roughly $250,000 one-time fee, and people could then use the pass for a lifetime. And the idea, I think, originally made a lot of sense. So it solved the cash flow problem. And when they looked at how customers were using the first class, they determined that if they just kept flying the way they were flying, it would also be profitable for the company, because people only flew a few times a year in first class. So looking at the status quo, that made a lot of sense to the company. But what they ignored, and these are the unintended consequences that come up if you change something more dramatic or drastical in your pricing and go out of the usual way, is that people might adapt to that. And in particular, there's one extreme case where one person, he essentially thought, and it was also a long story in different journals on this person. He said, okay, if I buy this path, and even if I lose everything else because it's personal, I lose my house, I lose everything, I still have a place to sleep. So I can always fly from A to B, because I have this first class lifetime flight path. And it turned out in the end that over a time span of 25 years, he took 10,000 flights. He flew a couple times across the world first class. And what he did, and there was an addition to that path, he could take passengers with him. So he flew, for example, young musicians who couldn't afford it, to concerts on another continent. He flew other people who had to travel for a long time and did all of that. And eventually that cost the airline $21 million in total. And they tried to settle that in a lawsuit. So here, I think the key lesson is that once you step out of your usual price model where you sell individual flights and go to something broader, it's important to understand how your customers react to that, and particularly in this case, what effect that might have on the cost of the product. So here the key challenge was, of course, by taking all of these flights, this person incurred a very large cost long-term on the company. So we looked, the first example highlighted the difficulty of just looking at competition. This one, the difficulty of ignoring how customers react and what that means for cost. And I think the third one is a case that's probably not so well known in the pricing world, but I think it's an important horror story to highlight the third key aspect of pricing, and that's how value is perceived by customers. So there was, we were in the US, and now we're going back to the UK with a case, and there was a jewelry chain, Redner's, that became incredibly successful over a very short period of time, and had about 2,000 stores in the UK and captured about 50% of the jewelry market. And what was particular about the store, and I hope you can see that in that picture on the left side here, is that they were selling jewelry at an incredibly low price, and they were very visual about the high discounts, the low prices that they gave. Everyone essentially knew that the quality of the products couldn't be very high, but everyone saw that they got a really great deal out of the product. And this resulted in the owner, the CEO, Gerald Redner, to become one of the richest people at the time in the UK, and resulting in a case where his company made over £1 billion in revenue in a year and 125 million pounds in profit. Because of that success, he was invited to speak at a prestigious conference, the Institute of Directors, where CEOs of large companies speak. And there he gave a very infamous speech. And when I think the way it went down was he had his speech and he had got advice from a speaking consultant, and the consultant told him, I think you should put in a couple of jokes in your speech to make it more interesting. And what I want to do is, and how that relates to pricing, is the fact that it highlights the importance, particularly if you're the CEO of the company and you're speaking for the company, the importance of value and value perception to the customers. And I just want to highlight, if I can, what he said, and then show you what resulted from that, because I think that's a very instructive example and one of the leading horror stories you can find. So let me switch my screen. Oh, I have to turn on the sound. Anton, can you hear it? Perfect.
We also do this nice sherry.
So this is in the middle of the speech. It's just half a minute, but it highlights the main things that he said, and what he said particularly about the value of his products.
To canter, it's cut glass. and it comes complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler could bring you in and serve you drinks on. And it's really only cost £4.95. People say to me, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say, because it's total crap. We even sell a pair of earrings for under £1, gold earrings as well. And some people say, well, that's cheaper than a prawn sandwich from Marks and Spencer's. But I have to say, the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings, but anyway.
So let's go back to the presentation. And then do you see the presentation?
Switch in the presentation mode and then.
Yeah, so that was just the highlights of the speech, and I recommend to listen to the whole thing, which is really interesting. So what happened after that? And it happened because it happened over the summer, and there was slow news, not a lot going on. So the different journalists picked up on the topic, and what happened afterwards. So this here on the left side is where he started. The stock price fell about 80% within a year. And that happened because his customers who were really enthusiastic about the product started boycotting his shops. And this resulted in the 80% decline in value. And as a result, the year later, so that the decline was in 91, in 92, he was fired from his own company. And the saying "doing a Ratner" is still like in England a parlance for saying something stupid that undermines the own product and customers. So I think the lesson here is that even so everyone knows if you buy a decanter for £4, it can't be the real thing. Making fun of your customers is obviously not a very good idea. And I think this is one of the most instructive cases. I think there was even a BBC story on what were the 10 biggest mistakes in the history of humans. And you had Nero burning Rome was one of the cases. And this speech made it to #1 in the end. So that's a big impact, an extreme case, but I think very, very instructive. So how does that bring us back to pricing? I think pricing horrors can come from all kinds of angles. And typically for us, 3 angles are important. So the competition, we looked at the case Making of a Fly. If you just follow the competition without any further considerations, that's a difficult thing. If you ignore how customers react and what that might mean for your cost structure, there was the Air Pass from American Airlines. That's a very difficult thing to do. And likewise, the last story we just heard, doing a Ratner, if you ignore the value perception and if you destroy the value of your product, that of course is also a big challenge for pricing. Even so, if the prices are very low, if the value isn't there, that's a big problem. But what we think, so these were extreme cases, but like most cases, the real horror are not the visible parts at the top, but the real horror, I think, comes in the day-to-day business, the small things that all of us see here and there. And maybe just to highlight what that means, in one of the cases where we worked with a customer of us, a CPG client, and before we came in, they essentially did their pricing using like traditional price elasticities, and they had the price elasticities from a traditional vendor, and that vendor provided elasticities in this case of -0.87, so very specific in their accuracy of how demand would react to price changes. And they applied this price elasticity to a specific decision. And what happened, if you look on the left side here, you see the actual unit sales. The blue line and the dark blue line are the price changes that they made because of the elasticity. And what you see is they increased the price and they expected volumes to go down only to this red dot here. But what really happened was that the elasticities didn't drop something like 10%, but 67%. And that was because the elasticity value might have been true for very small price changes in the beginning, but it ignored all the dynamics in the markets. And this is something that a price elasticity cannot really do. And I think using legacy tools like a price elasticity is what in our daily work is the real horror, and where the most of the mistakes are made. And for us, this is an example that we looked with our tool, like with a more machine learning based tool that Anton introduced in the beginning. It allows us to be much more precise in predicting the actual dynamics in the markets here. And for us, the real horror, as I said, comes in the form of price elasticities. So where you have all the complexity in demand and reduce it essentially to a single regression line, and even worse than that, into a single price elasticity value. So this is where we see the true horror. And maybe I think we have another minute. Let's switch screen again and show how pricing can be done today, if I find it. Anton, can you see the browser? So one of the challenges that I mentioned was that if you, for example, work with price elasticities, they usually assume that they're constant. So if someone tells you price elasticity is -2, that assumes that the price volume relationship is pretty much the same, regardless of by how much you change a price. But this is almost always not the case. So in this simple example here, we're looking at two fruits, apples and pears. They're priced around €1.30 each. And what you can do is, and this is, by the way, our platform, and the method underneath it is what we call the virtual shoppers. So it works in a way that we create from real data, sellout data, and other data sources, a replica of real customers, and these virtual shoppers behave like real customers, and you can show them your offers at different prices. They would tell you what they would buy and how much they would buy. And this allows for a much more precise modeling and prediction of what really happens in the market. So for example, if I increase the price here by 10 cents from 130 to 140, I will lose 49 units. And 26 of them will go to my competitor, and 23 will not buy anything anymore because they liked apples, but not at that price, and they didn't like pears. And with something like that, and I think this is how more and more companies are now actually doing pricing, who are moving away from elasticities, is that you have much more transparency. It's with a solution like this, you can also get the interdependencies right. So if you change the price in one product, here's the demand function, but let's look at the profit of the two products. If you say, okay, I'm too cheap, my profit optimum is here at 110, you see that it also affects the competitor. And with a system like this, so if the competitor changes price, you see that now again, we're too expensive, and you see like the dynamics of the dependence between the price of two competitors. One changes the price, that affects the others. And also like in a Nash equilibrium, for example, you see that there's a case like this one here where you can't change your price or improve your profit on your own, but maybe together with your competitor. So what I'm saying is, and this is just a very brief intro on this, and I won't go too much deeper, is that with systems like these, you can actually solve the difficulty of price elasticities that we highlighted in the last horror stories. And you can also, and that's going to be the last one before I go back, you can also use this for more complex cases. So here we have, for example, 4 own products. We have competitor products in here. We're able to put in our costs, our discounts that we give to a retailer if that's how we sell. So we can replicate the full complexity of real revenue management situations, or we can also do this in other industries, and see that if we, again here, change a price, that we lose sales. Some of the sales go into our other products, so it's not too bad for us if we keep it within our portfolio, but we also lose sales to competitor or sales that go completely out of the market. And we also see that if we only change the price in one product, we have a very high price elasticity. If we change the price of more than one product, we see that the elasticities go down, because in this case, the most relevant alternative is also a bit more expensive. So fewer people switch between these products. And with something like that, with a tool like this, it's much easier to make decisions. For example, if you are in a situation where, and then I'll go back, in a situation where you sell your products and then you have a COGS increase. So because we all live in a high inflation environment, our costs increase. So if I keep selling at the old price, nothing happens, of course, in the units, nothing happens in the revenues, but I lose profit. And the question would be, for example, what happens if I also increase all my prices by the 20%? In this case, this is more, increases my profit. And I can also see, okay, what happens, for example, if I reduce my pack sizes. So I go from 250 grams to 200, from 500 to 400. So I reduce it all by 20%. And I see that in this case, I'm more profitable, of course, than doing nothing, but less profitable than increasing my price by 20%. Of course, this is always situation specific. So the results, of course, of this example can't be generalized, and it always depends on the specific data of a situation. Okay, so yeah, and just to conclude, we were looking at the horror stories. I hope there was something new and interesting in here for everyone. I'm fairly sure you haven't heard, or few have heard of the Redner example that highlights the importance of value to the customer. Highly recommend watching the whole video. It's really interesting. And I think that many of these challenges that come from a case where you, as a pricing professional or someone who has to set prices, does something out of the ordinary. So you introduce a completely new pricing model, like the American Airlines case. If you just look at your competitor and then everyone increases prices and no one sees it, or if you try to be funny in a situation where you shouldn't be, then these situations are very challenging. Or if you increase a price or change a product on your day-to-day life and do that in a competitive environment where it's difficult to assess what happens with something like a price elasticities. In all of these cases, it's really difficult. And if you're unlucky, then something like one of these pricing horror stories emerges. We hope that that doesn't happen too often. And with that, Anton.
Interesting. I hope that our listeners are not too scared by all those horror stories, but rather see the chances that you have in doing it better if you do it rightly. As usually, we close up with a couple of questions. Quick reminder, I got a few on the private chat. If you have furthers on the common one, you can also send them there. Let's start with the first one. So what type of data do you work with? Ingo, maybe you want to elaborate a bit on this.
Just very briefly, if you want to go into more details on that, just contact us or look at our website. But in a nutshell, we can work with all the typical pricing data that's available. So that means with transaction data, sales data like sellout data, but also with survey data, conjoints, Van Westendorp, Garber Granger, all the typical pricing inputs we can use in our solution, and we can also use them all together to get the best results or good results.
Great. Yeah, with a quick view on the time, I would suggest that we'll pull all the other questions to a follow-up. We'll make sure to get them answered individually. Maybe a quick reminder on the material online. So we have now coming out of a long series of webinars, very interesting topics. Feel free to check them out. You can all see them on the website. And mark your calendars for in 2 weeks, November 11th. We're going to have the next webinar coming up on pricing and RGM methods. And of course, we'll be very happy to see you all there again. I think with that, thanks for coming in, and have a great weekend and not a too scary Halloween.
Yeah.